You are listening to the Mark Guzman Podcast Experience. On this episode of Real Realtors, we discuss commercial and residential lending, buying a business, analyzing investments, the most recent tax reform revision and the mortgage interest deduction, and how the Napa fires will affect future real estate. There's lots of topics we discuss in a very short amount of time, lots of information for real estate agents and consumers. Hope you enjoy. Okay, I am recording now. We are live with another episode of Real Realtors. And today I have two guests, Cass Gulden and Ryan Bettencourt. And I want to welcome the two of you onto the podcast. So thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get started. Let's do a quick introduction for both of you and how you got into the business. So Ryan, let's start with you. You're a mortgage loan officer. So how did you get into this business?
Yes, I'm a mortgage loan officer for Summit Funding. I got into the business through my dad. I was at Chico State. I got offered a job by a big company, called my dad excited, and he said, "No way, you're going to come work for me." And so I said, "Okay, I'll give it a try." Came back over here and started learning from my dad. He's been in the business for 40 years, and that was 2.5 years ago. And I've been doing it and loving it since, and just trying to learn everything from him and soak in the knowledge that I can.
Great. Cass, how did you get into the business? Now, you do commercial sales.
Yes, I do all commercials. So I came into the business sort of a different route. I was a territory manager for the Bay Area, for the East Bay mainly, for 18 years for Trek Bicycle. And a big part of my job was retail expansion throughout the Bay Area, is trying to grab a little bit more market share, open new stores. And throughout that process of looking for new sites and new locations, that's how I really got the bug for commercial real estate and knew someday that's what I wanted to do full time.
Okay. So did you start off originally in commercial, or have you ever done residential?
Never done any residential. No,
Okay, that's very interesting.
So, yeah, just commercial only.
Many agents start residential and then eventually switch to commercial.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, I mean, I knew a lot of good residential agents. I thought in a way that market was, pretty well filled, pretty well saturated, and my interest was always sort of in retail and commercial. So for me, it just made the most sense to really just to go that direction.
Okay. So Ryan, let's get into your specialties as a lender. What are your specialties? Do you focus residential? And I know one of the common questions is, well, if someone wants to buy a multi-unit building, what's a different type of financing? And this is going to be a neat conversation because there's residential financing and then there's commercial financing, which, Cass, you're familiar with quite a bit.
Sure.
We specialize in obviously primary, secondary. When it comes to multi-unit, we focus up to 4 units. We don't do much larger than 4 units. So we really do focus on more primary residence and investment properties up to 4 units. So the multi-units, at least for us, because we have had quite a few people come to us looking for us to do them. And it's hard to even find some of the big banks that do them. So we usually refer people out, and it's more of a niche product now. And I'm sure Cass can tell you lots of people and how they go. But people have started to tighten up on them. Not as many lenders do them. Mortgage banks like us at Summit Funding and a lot of other ones like us are not doing them anymore. So I know they're spreading somewhere else. But yeah, we focus on your primary residence and up to 4 units.
So if someone wants to buy an investment property, what's the required down payment?
So for most of them, it depends on who you go to, but most of the time for an investment property, they want you to put 20% down. It's pretty standard. There's certain places that do other little niche things, but for the most part, you're looking at 20% down on your investment properties.
Okay. Now, appraisal issues. So, Cass, let's switch over to you. Appraisal issues. In the commercial world, are appraisal issues common as much as in, I guess, the real estate world? I know they're a bit common today.
Sure. I would say it's not as big of an issue these days just because values are so high. A lot of times
they just keep going up, right?
They just keep going up, and with that sort of trend, it's easier to get the appraisal that you need. we kind of integrate our services with the appraisers, so we'll show them a bunch of recent comps, which kind of makes their job easier, and that way we can prove to them that whatever asset we're looking at will probably appraise or sell at that value potentially.
Now, as a commercial agent, let's say you're going to list a property for sale. I know as a commercial agent, you go through a wide range of investigation prior to even putting the property on the market.
Yes, definitely.
What's that investigation look like?
There's a lot of different steps in the process, and it sort of depends on where that asset is located. But a lot of times you'll want to get sort of a preliminary report just to see if there's any contamination issues. You'll want to look at obviously the title report to make sure the title's clean, and then you want to normally get what's called a phase one, where they go through the entire history of the building to see if there's any underground tanks or any type of contamination issues. And then we'll also look, of course, in this area to see what sort of earthquake zone it happens to be in or flood zone.
Okay, one thing that a lot of people hear is a cap rate. Can you kind of expand on what the cap rate is? How do you calculate that?
Sure, the cap rate or your capitalization rate is just the basically the amount of return you're going to get per year on that particular asset. So looking at the property, if the property's $1 million, say, just give you a good round number, and it's generating $100,000 per year, which is on the higher side, that gives you a 10% cap rate. So cap rates these days are quite a bit lower. They're more in, I would say, the 4 to 6 range.
Especially in the Bay Area.
Especially in this Bay Area where property values are really, really high. It certainly lowers your cap rate. If you get out of the Bay Area, you can find higher cap rates that are kind of more what people are accustomed to, more in the 8 to 10% range. But around here, I would say 4 to 6 is quite a bit more average.
Now, the cap rate does not take into account expenses on the property. That's just the income it produces, correct?
It does take into account expenses, yes. So you deduct the expenses to get your cap rate.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So at 4 to 6% after expenses, still a pretty decent return.
Still a decent return these days. If you look at interest rate on what a bank's going to pay you or other types of investment, it's still a decent return in the long run for sure. Yep.
Now, do you work solely in the Bay Area, or are you an agent that also travels across the state?
Just in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Yeah. Primarily, I service Oakland, Alameda, Emeryville, Berkeley, and Albany, and then some of the outlying areas. But those are the main areas of focus for me, just because that's the areas I'm most familiar with. And Oakland is just exploding for a number of reasons, so it's just a good time to be doing commercial real estate in Oakland.
Yeah, Oakland's on fire right now.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of people that were focusing on San Francisco have decided to take a step back.
Yes.
And then they looked across the bridge and said, wait a minute, there's this big chunk of land it's still expensive, but it's not popping like San Francisco, but now it's exploding. I mean, there's so many commercial developments going on in Oakland right now.
There's a ton downtown and uptown and even in West Oakland, and that's what we definitely see in our business is a lot of users, developers, and investors are coming from San Francisco.
Yeah.
Both looking for, space to buy and space to lease.
Yeah. Now, the wine country fire that just recently happened. So I want to talk about the difficulties of, well, first of all, I mean, it was a very unfortunate event, and now numerous for sale signs are popping up in different areas. People are, their house is burnt down. They have to sell either the piece of land or, if there's still a house on it, they basically have to sell it as a tear down. So, Ryan, what are some of the difficulties buyers are going to have to face if they're trying to purchase these properties, or even on the selling side if they're trying to sell these properties?
So the biggest issue and we've seen it with multiple things, and I'll give you a good example. Right here in the Terre Hills area, we did loans on 2 separate houses, almost identical, same neighborhood, same everything. One home had homeowner's insurance, $700 a year, pretty basic. The other one, just 2 blocks down, had 3 insurance claims on it. These ones were for theft. They wanted $1,900 a year for their homeowner's insurance. So now going back to the wildfires that were in wine country, that's the biggest issue they're going to face. It's getting homeowners insurance on these properties now, where these insurance companies have had to give out big claims. If they are going to insure them, they're going to want an arm and a leg to do it. So I think that's the biggest issue a lot of consumers are going to see when people are selling it, they have to, the buyer has to go get a homeowner's insurance quote, and you're going to get these outrageous policies, and it's going to scare a lot of people away. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest thing they're going to face.
And affordability is tough enough as it is now, and now it's going to get tougher.
And so when you go from, say standard $55 a month on your homeowner's insurance when we calculate in debt to income, and that's a part of it, if that $55 a month now goes to $250 a month, that affects people's ability to buy. So that might put someone from being able to purchase $500,000 all the way down to say $400,000 because they got to fork out this extra $200 a month in homeowners insurance. So it's really going to hurt people's ability to buy. It's going to scare people away from their properties. I think that's the biggest issue that they're going to face with that is people are just not going to want to insure those properties. And if they do, they're going to want to arm and a leg to do so.
So it seems like the people that are going to be buying, do you feel the majority of the people that will be buying these homes are going to be cash investors?
God, that's hard to say because I really don't know what they're going to do because there's still a lot of stipulation out there. A lot of people are trying to rebuild. People are trying to, get paid. People are trying to figure out what they're going to do. If the price of them is really low, then yeah, you might have cash investors come in, swoop them up, and try to make a profit off of them. You're going to have a lot of people that live there forever just trying to get back. I really don't know what's going to happen there. I just know that the biggest issue is going to be insuring those properties. That's about all I can really think that's going to be an issue there.
Yeah, so the homeowner insurance is just going to be crazy high. That's what it's coming back.
Ridiculous, yeah.
Now, what about commercial side? How commercial building or business burns down, how does that then affect future value? How does it affect future transactions of that specific business or building?
I've actually seen it happen in certain areas. It's sort of rare, maybe more rare with commercial because it's just not as densely populated. But I have seen that recently, and it's a really long, drawn out process. Rebuilding a commercial structure is probably like residential. It's going to take you at least 2 years to get it done. So the hard thing is if you're running a business out of that structure, you need to find somewhere else to relocate. And that comes back to the really low vacancy rates in Oakland. It's probably less than 2% with industrial properties. So a lot of those guys we see that are moving out to, out to the valley, out to Stockton, Modesto, or up to Sacramento and just looking for other areas to relocate. And I think a lot of those, if they ran into those types of issues, they would relocate to an area like that and probably never come back to the Bay Area. So we might lose companies like that for good, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you also sell or represent buyers in business opportunities?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to pick your brain on this one. And if you're somebody who wants to buy a business and you look at what's available on the market right now,
Sure.
a lot of it tends, or at least to me, it seems a bit overpriced. And I understand it. People are really trying to push the value
Sure.
to get as much out of their business. But the accounting that's available, the profit and losses, it's all completely, everything's different, right?
Yes.
You have some that are done really well, some that
Absolutely.
are poorly done.
Yes.
So what's the first step if you're looking to buy a business? What do you look for? How do you analyze a profit and loss?
The first step, I would say, is just getting a real firm handle on the numbers. And like you said, there's a very vast variety of accounting systems out there, and some are really on top of it. Some are great at doing, monthly reconciliation, and they can tell you basically up to the day or up to the week how profitable they are and what their sales numbers look like. And then there's other guys that, look at it maybe once a year, and they're going to have a really hard time showing you a P&L or profit and loss statement. So in the businesses that are out there, I'd say that those are the most highly valued, is the ones that really have accurate numbers, and obviously it depends on what the business is also. But I work directly with a business broker that's a friend of mine, and that's what he does full time. It's just doing business brokerage.
Okay.
So I've learned a lot from him about buying and selling businesses.
Now, if you're looking to sell a business, when it comes down to accounting, is it true that if you run a lot of personal expenses through your business, that it hurts the resale value of the business?
It absolutely can, because the new potential owner will look at those and usually, extract them out of the equation. They look at that, and they also look at how much the person was paying themselves out of the business. So a lot of these businesses that are for sale, it's sort of a mom and pop shop, or a couple was running them. So you'll have to take their salary and kind of extract that out of the equation as well. What would you need to pay someone to do the job that person was doing? If they're paying themselves $100,000 for two people, then you need to kind of take that out of the equation.
Yeah. Ryan, do you deal with any business loans?
No, we don't do business loans.
Are
But
there lenders that do?
yeah, they are. Business loans are incredibly hard to get, by the way, too.
Yes.
So they are
Well,
incredibly
I know
hard to
the
get.
Small Business Administration, their SBA loans are extremely tough to get.
So
and-
tough. They
yeah.
ask you for everything, and it takes a very long time. Good friend of mine, they were in the process for, I want to say, like a year, trying to get everything straightened out and handled. So we don't do them, but as far as with people who own businesses, we look at corporate tax returns all the time. When people own their own business 100%, or even say 33% of it, we can obviously use the income from that business of what part they own as for their qualifying income. So we look at a lot of corporate tax returns, a lot of LLC documents. We look at a lot of stuff like that and figure it into people's income. But as far as actual business loans, no, we do not do those. They're too difficult. They're just a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay. Have either of you taken a look at the latest tax bill revisions?
Yes.
What do you think about them?
Just on the commercial side, they really don't have much impact. They're pretty much unchanged. The biggest concern on the commercial side was the exchange, or the 1031 exchange, where people can sell a commercial property and then trade that money into a like type property, it's called. So there was a lot of talk about maybe this administration doing away with the 1031 exchange.
You know what? I forgot about that. That was at the very early stages, right?
Yes, yes.
So that got untouched.
Yes.
It's unchanged.
Yeah, it looks like right now it's
Okay.
unchanged, and that was a huge concern. Because when you sell a commercial property, there's no break on capital gains like there is on residential. So it would have been really, really hard to find active sellers in the market if they couldn't trade in another property, because then they would be paying 20-30% capital gains tax on that.
Yeah. And I know one of the big talks right now is a mortgage interest deduction being
Yes.
capped at $10,000.
$10,000.
But when you're an investor, you're able to deduct your expenses off of your
Yes.
profit.
Right.
And so it kind of washes out.
Yeah, and on commercial properties, a lot of times your tenants are paying your property taxes anyway.
Correct.
At least in a triple net lease, so that wasn't as a big concern. But the big concern was certainly the 1031 exchange.
Okay. You know what? That's a common question I get a lot when it comes to commercial, because I manage a few commercial buildings.
Sure.
And clients will ask me, well, what's the difference between the leases? Is one better than the other? And I know it depends on the type of clientele also that you have coming in.
Sure.
For your, I mean, if you're going to have a retail giant like TJ Maxx or
Yeah.
Target, that's completely different than an office building.
Sure.
That you offer full service, right?
Yes, yeah.
So why don't you break down just briefly the different types of leases?
Sure. The most common type of lease, like I said, is a triple net lease, and the advantage to the property owner for the triple net lease is obviously your tenants are covering most of your expenses. They'll cover your property taxes, they'll cover your common area maintenance, and they'll cover a portion of your insurance. So that's the big benefit to the
And they pay the
property owner.
utilities.
Yes, and sometimes utilities, especially in the common areas. So the triple net lease is probably the most common, especially on retail deals. With larger office buildings, it's harder to split up those expenses. So a lot of times, like you said, they'll just do what's called a full service lease, because there's usually like janitorial service and other things that are thrown into the mix. So the lease rate might be slightly higher, but you're not paying an additional 50 cents to $1 per square foot on top of that.
Yeah, especially like I manage a commercial building, in fact, where you guys are at. There's a whole gym. There's janitorial services. Yeah, there's different features
Yeah.
that are at the building that you pay for and through
Right.
the common.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So as far as the mortgage interest deduction, Ryan, I want to get your take on this, how this is going to affect even qualifications going forward with buyers.
So, I mean, there's two ways. So the House had obviously their bill that they wrote, and the Senate had their bill that they wrote, and I think now they're at the point where they're going to the conferences and kind of hashing it out right now. And so the big one for us is the Senate plan is still allowing the $1.1 million of mortgage interest deduction. So that's on the loan, and it is allowing second homes. The House plan is to cut it down to $500,000 and no second home. So that for especially in the Bay Area, it's a lot of people are going to have over $500,000 on their loan. Anything over that, they're going to be capped. They're not going to be able to write that off. So for I would say most of America, it might not be a big deal because in the Bay Area, LA, probably certain parts of New York, New Jersey, places like that, where houses are very expensive, it's going to hurt buyers and it's going to hurt the market a bit because our prices are so high. For most of America where housing prices aren't that high, they probably won't see the effect of it as much. So that one's a little rough. And then $10,000 is the max on property tax write-offs now. That one's going to be another rough one because if you have a first home and a second home, you can easily get past that 10,000. And just with prices in the Bay Area, you could get past 10,000 very easily, especially in certain areas. So like we know right here in Richmond has very high property taxes. Pinole area, Hercules area isn't as bad. Certain spots of Oakland's kind of high, so you could get past that 10,000 mark very, very quickly. And it's not going to be as attractive for people to purchase when there's not as many things as they can write off on their taxes anymore. So they're trying to lower that, and obviously they're trying to lower that to bring more money into the government. But as a buyer or seller in the real estate market, it's taken away a little bit of the attractiveness to purchase because there's not that benefit on the write-offs anymore. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. The Senate's plan to keep it at 1.1 million and have second homes, that part, if it could stay up there, that would be great for us in this business. So we'll just kind of have to see what happens. The big hit, though, for both of them is no more home equity loan interest deduction. That is wiped. That's gone. So I think that's completely gone no matter which way we shake it. So
Okay. So I just looked up the United States home price values, and this is, of course, according to Zillow, so it may not always be accurate, but 203,000 is the average home value across the states. So a 500,000 interest deduction, that's not going to be a big deal for most people.
not for most.
So, and I'm saying this because I'm going to transition into my next question here, because Inman.com, they came out with an opinion piece just a few days ago, or it might have been end of last week maybe, but anyway, they came out with an opinion piece criticizing the National Association of Realtors because their NAR is constantly talking about we need to save the MID, the mortgage interest deduction, right? We need to save it. We need to save it. We can't have it drop down to 500,000. But the opinion piece was criticizing them because they're focusing on the wrong thing. When the majority of the country is $203,000 value, the 500,000 doesn't affect them, but it affects high-end metropolitan areas: San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, New York, Miami. But and NAR is supposed to represent the majority of the realtors, or actually all the realtors across the entire United States. And so they're trying to tell NAR, you need to focus on things members care about, such as realtor healthcare, which was a big popular idea, I want to say 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Sure.
And nothing really developed after that. So I want to get your opinion on this. Should NAR be focusing on the mortgage interest deduction, or should they maybe try to focus on other benefits that are better for the members? Cass, we'll start with you.
Sure. Ryan probably has more information on this than I do, but yeah, it does seem like they need to have a special concentration of, an area they're going to study. It should be, California, the Bay Area. I think it's hard to lump the entire United States real estate market into one big lump, because if you look at comps, you certainly couldn't do that, or any other ways of analyzing the market. You could never put it into one big lump. So you really have to look at every single sub-market out there to really get any kind of handle on what the effect is going to be or what the focus should be. And then in regards to healthcare, I think it's certainly a valid issue and a hot topic these days. I think we're sort of fortunate in California to have really good healthcare options under covered CA, but in other states, I think it'd be a lot more challenging for sure. I mean, that's what I use for my insurance, and it's great coverage, and it's good to have those options. But if we didn't have those options, it would be very, very expensive for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And the opinion piece went a little bit further, breaking down that we have about 1.2 million realtor members, and that's enough to provide some decent realtor healthcare plan.
Sure, as a group, absolutely. There's definitely strength in those numbers, and it does seem like there'd be a way to kind of, gather those people together to kind of look at larger group policies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Mark, do you know where most of those members are centered? Are they kind of spread all over, or?
yeah, 1.2 million realtors across all the states and all the different state associations. I know the California Association has about 193,000, and we expect to break 200,000 in 2018. So we should be around 201, 202, something like that. So California is definitely one of the bigger ones. But yeah, I'm not sure how the other states are completely spread out.
That was maybe a little bit of my feeling, though, of why they're really touching on a topic is maybe most of the members are centered in areas where it's
15%.
affected. So that would be my first guess, would be that most of the members will be affected by the change, and that's why they're sticking to the topic, is because it's in areas that will affect them. So I know, like you said, California
Makes a lot of sense.
California has a big hit here, and they have a lot of members, and a lot of places in California will be affected by this. So,
And you have California, you have New York, you have parts of Florida.
you have big populated areas where real estate agents are very active, the market's booming, and so they're gonna vote for and want the things that affect them in their area. So, I mean,
You bring up a really good point there. Now I want to do some research to see how many realtor members are in these high expensive cost metropolitan areas compared to the rest of the nation. That might make sense why they're focusing so
Sure.
much on these other topics as opposed to something like realtor healthcare.
Sure, and I'm sure there is a high concentration in California and New York. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can also see us, losing more jobs and more people to Nevada if that's the case. More people, commercial and residential, I think, would relocate to areas like Reno and places like that where it's so close to the Bay Area.
well, and just like you had said earlier, both of you guys touched on it about how San Francisco was booming, and it moved to Oakland. So San Francisco got so incredibly expensive, people took that money into Oakland. And now we see it trickling even further and further as the house prices keep climbing up the 80 corridor.
Sure.
The money's coming from San Francisco to Oakland, Berkeley, Albany, and now our Richmond, Pinole prices are all going up.
Sure.
People are selling for high values out there, bringing that cash, buying for cheaper over here. But because all that money's flowing this way, the prices are going up on the corridor. So I agree with you. I think people will move to where it's cheaper. They will take maybe the money from their high-priced California homes, and this baby boom era might go, okay, well, we can retire in Nevada
Sure.
with a lot less money
Right,
and get a
right.
huge home.
I just mentioned Reno because I was there over Thanksgiving. My brother lives there, and there's just an amazing amount of new construction going on right there. Houses, massive, massive subdivisions, and massive warehouses of 100, 200,000 square feet. So I think Nevada's really poised for that kind of move for sure.
Well, didn't they also pass or legalize marijuana too?
They did. They were sort of on the same course as California, and then I think sort of intentionally they jumped the gun by 6 months. So instead of going January 1st, 2018, they went July 1st, 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's part of it also. And maybe that's part of the appeal for people moving there. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic.
So let's take a step back from current issues. And what has been the most enjoyable part about being in the real estate industry for you? And what keeps you motivated every single day? Cass, let's start with you.
What I love about the business is there's never, ever any 2 days that are alike. I'm the kind of person where if you chain me to a desk for 8 hours, I would probably just shrivel up and die. So I love the fact that every day is completely different. You never know who you're going to talk to, where you're going to end up that day. Obviously, you have a game plan going into it, but a lot of times that game plan will definitely take a detour and lead you in a whole different direction. So a lot of it's just, you got to kind of thrive on that type of uncertainty for sure. And either you're wired that way or you're not wired that way, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan?
I could just like the challenge of having to fix things With loans, nothing is cookie cutter or easy anymore. There's always a problem, and it's always different from case to case. And it just kind of keeps you interested, keeps you in it, just figuring out a different problem every day. I think that's what we are more than anything, is just problem solvers, trying to figure out how to get someone the financing they're looking for and try to, figure out how to get through all the little bumps on the way.
Now, being now experienced in both of your fields, what is something that you wish someone had told you, or if you could go back to when you first started real estate and just tell yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
For me, one piece of advice would be definitely don't dwell on the stuff that doesn't happen, the stuff that blows up and goes bad. You certainly need to have a very optimistic attitude to just move on and go on to the next deal. That's part of it for sure. Because I think early on, one of my mentors told me that, expect 30% of your deals to go bad, or, you better be okay with 50% of your day not making you any money whatsoever. So a lot of that, is just keeping the focus on what's going to make money, what's going to get done, and just kind of moving on and not dwelling on the stuff that blows up, because it does happen quite a bit.
I like to tell people focus on the solution, not the problem.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
as soon as a problem comes up, keep focused on the goal,
Yes.
and then you just keep moving forward.
Right.
Big tip.
I'd say keep prospecting while you're already busy. We have an issue of you get really slammed and you just focus on what you have and, oh man, we got to get these files closed. Then when they close, you got a little lull because you weren't setting up any new prospects while, you were slammed. So I think just staying focused while you're busy and making sure you have a steady stream of business going so that you don't have these huge ups and downs that are so historical in this business. People forever have had, huge months and then crash for a few, then huge months, and just kind of being able to level that off and stay focused, stay prospecting, never take it easy, and, try to keep it going.
Yeah, that's great advice there. And a lot of that comes down to time management and making sure you get it scheduled in to do prospecting at least every day, or if not, a certain chunk of every week has to be dedicated to prospecting.
Yeah, without a doubt. Because like Ryan said, you got to just keep continuously filling that pipeline. And sometimes it does get challenging when you get busy. But yeah, that's also a good piece of advice I got early on is, always be looking for the next deal. Even when you're working on 5 deals and you think you're really busy, always be looking for the next deal. And, a guy told me early on, I asked a guy what separates people who make it and people who don't make in this business. And he said that's the number one thing. It's just you got to keep filling that pipeline.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, many times it's really just a numbers game if you look at it. And if you want to work backwards, let's say you want to close 10 deals per year. Well, what's your conversion rate from the top? Like, how many leads and prospects do you need to make contact with to then convert to appointments, to then convert to clients, to then convert to transactions, to then convert to closed transactions? If you just work on that whole pipeline and your conversion rates, you can calculate, well, I need to meet with 1,000 people every year, and that'll get me the 10 deals. And then you go out and do it.
Right. And that's definitely the right way to look at it.
Yeah. Perfect. So I want to thank you too for being on the podcast today. It was fun. We hit up a whole bunch of really good topics. And for people that want to reach out to you for commercial purchases, or even selling their property, or for mortgage financing, Cass, let's start with you. What's the best way to contact you, and website and phone number or email?
Sure. I work for Lee & Associates. We're based in the Jack London area of Oakland. And email is a good way to go. My email is cgulden, CGULDEN, at lee-associates.com. And I actually use my cell phone for everything. So my contact number is 510-599-3139. And then you can find me on our website too. It's just lee-associates.com, and just look up the Oakland office.
Perfect. And we'll have you guys linked up too on the description everywhere.
Great.
And Ryan, what's the best way to contact you?
We have our website, summitfunding.net, but the best way to contact me is always on my cell phone, 510-620-4409, or by my email address, ryan.bettencourt, Bettencourt's BETTENCOURT, at summitfunding.net.
Isn't it amazing that even 20, 25 years ago, everyone was saying there's no way I'm gonna have a cell phone on me all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 18 when I first got into the business.
Yeah.
And I did not even like it. I was like, I don't want to be carrying this. And
Sure.
now I can't leave it. It's sitting right here next to me.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's funny that everyone does business now, and here's my cell phone.
Sure. Mine's usually on all the time until my wife takes it away. Time to shut down business. Yep.
I don't even turn mine off to charge at night. It stays on while it charges. So we live with the things now, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for being on the podcast. We'll have
Thanks,
all
Mark.
your information linked up in the description, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman, for another great episode of Real Realtors. Thank you to my guests, Ryan Bettencourt and Cass Gulden. Please go check them out. Follow them on social. If you have any questions regarding commercial or lending, contact them. They are great people and can help you out. If you have any other information that you want to know about my own business as a property manager and realtor, go visit markguzman.com. Please subscribe to the podcast. Thank you again for listening. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.